My name is Kim Armstead, Public Information Officer with the Oakland Police Department. Today, Oakland Police Chief LeRonne Armstrong will be discussing the homicide that occurred yesterday here in the 2000 block of 13th Avenue. The Chief is joined by Council President Nikki Boss, Captain Beaver, Captain Yu, and Officer Mei Fu. As always, questions will be held and taken at the end of the Chief's statement. Thank you. I'll turn it over to the Chief.
Good afternoon. The Oakland Police Department is saddened by the tragic loss of life that occurred here yesterday in the 2000 block of 13th Avenue. We're troubled by the brazen act of violence that occurred here, where two individuals approached a car that was occupied by Mr. Kong Vong of Oakland. Our officers responded to calls of a shooting in the 2000 block of 13th Avenue. Upon arrival, our officers made contact with Mr. Vong, who was suffering from gunshot wounds. Unfortunately, Mr. Vong succumbed to his injuries and was pronounced deceased at the scene. We are asking for anyone in this community who may have seen this incident occur, who may have information regarding what happened here yesterday, or have video evidence that could help us identify those responsible for this brazen crime. Members of our command staff have been working with members of the community and our council member to try to address violence in this particular area. This area has been impacted by violence over the last several months, and we have been working with community to try to address this violence. As a response to the incident that occurred yesterday here, the tragic homicide of Mr. Vong, we will continue to work with our community and our council member's office to bring more resources here. We are addressing shootings, homicides, robberies, and traffic enforcement in this particular area. We also will leverage our Chinatown liaison officer, Officer Mei Fu, who you see here with us today. We want to continue to try to build relationships with our community. This community, who is often known as Little Saigon, has definitely been one that's been impacted significantly by violence. This is actually the highest, the most violent beat in the city of Oakland. Beat 19 is the most violent beat in the city of Oakland. It has been impacted more than any other beat in the city with homicides, shootings, and robberies. But the Oakland Police Department has been facing homicides and shootings over this past weekend. We had 3 homicides over the weekend, taking us to currently 64 homicides for 2022, compared to 72 at this same time last year. So even though we've seen a decline, 64 bodies, 64 people who have lost their lives are way too many people. Our community is suffering because of this trauma, and it started on Friday night, where at 9 p.m., the Oakland Police Department responded to the 1400 block of Harrison Street to reports of a shooting. Upon arrival, officers made contact with the victim suffering from gunshot wounds. Unfortunately, that person succumbed to his injuries. We are not releasing the name at this time, pending notice of next of kin. The male subject who was responsible for this shooting was taken into custody by officers, and we're working with the district attorney's office on potential charging of that case. And then our latest homicide, which occurred this morning at 05:30 hours in the 106 block of Pippin Street, where officers responded to a call of a shooting and someone suffering from gunshot wounds. Upon arrival, officers located an individual suffering from multiple gunshot wounds. Unfortunately, he succumbed to his injuries as well. So we know that this violence is not only plaguing the 2000 block of 13th Avenue and Beat 19, but we've seen violence occur across our city. We continue to ask our community to reach out to us and provide us any information they may have, to contact our homicide section at 510-238-3821, and also utilize our tip line at 510-238-7950. This is difficult for this community, who has been working with police. They have been meeting with law enforcement, asking for help, asking for more resources. And we've been trying to shift resources here to address this issue of violence. But unfortunately, this tragic incident that happened yesterday to Mr. Vong was one that I think really, brings to reality of what happens when we don't have the resources to be everywhere that we're being asked to be. And so it's tragedy for this community, a tragedy for this city, and a tremendous loss that a man that was just out doing his job, working, and unfortunately, two individuals came and attempted to rob him, and obviously chose to use a firearm, and unfortunately took Mr. Fong's life. With that, I'll take any questions you have or regarding any of those investigations.
Was this a carjacking? Was this targeted?
We believe that this was a robbery. We don't know initially what the underlying circumstances may have been, but we know that Mr. Fong was working in the area, and he was approached by these two individuals that attempted what it appears to rob him or carjack him. We're still early in the investigation, but we know that there was some type of conversation between the two, that was a verbal dispute, if you would, and that led to the gunfire.
So it was a robbery or a carjacking?
Yeah, I think we're in the early stages, but we know something occurred in terms of whether it was the car that they were interested or if there was other valuables that they were interested. But we know that there was some attempt to take something from Mr. Vaughn.
Chief Jeffrey Schaub, KCBS, good afternoon.
Yeah.
Noel Gallo suggested, I think it was last week, that maybe the National Guard needs to be brought in because he says the department is so understaffed. I think he used a number of 100 or something like that. I can't imagine you want the National Guard to come in, but how do you respond to that and to people in the community who say we need to see a lot more officers and presence in here?
Yeah, I don't disagree that we need additional police resources. I don't believe that we need the National Guard. I believe the efforts and the hard-working officers of the Oakland Police Department have been doing their best to drive down violence. Violent crime and homicides are down for the year. But obviously, we all can agree that 64 homicides is far too many. It's far too many lives lost. For us, I think it's not a overnight, filling of positions. That takes time. We have over nearly 90 vacancies right now in the Oakland Police Department. That is the highest number that we've had in probably 10 years. So it really is an issue around resources, an issue around recruiting and retaining officers. We have to keep the good officers that we have here and not lose them to other agencies. We have to bring in new Oaklanders, people who have local connections to our city, people who want to come into Oakland and work here and make this city safer. But that takes time. And we are working hard. The city council has given us the resources that we need to do the recruiting and hiring, but it just takes time. And unfortunately, in the meantime, we are short resources, but our officers are working around the clock to try to address gun violence.
You mentioned that there's been an increase in crime here in Beat 19. Can you go into more specifics about what kind of increase that's been along those lines?
Yeah, we've seen an increase in robberies. We've seen an increase in homicides in Beat 19 area. That's something that during our normal crime meetings, our weekly look at all crime across the city, we identified that this was a beat that was having tremendous issues. We put a new commander here who is Captain Beaver. You see him here today to refocus him. He comes out of our Violent Crimes Operations Center with a lot of experience with addressing violent crime, so we hope to utilize his experience. We've also recognized the need for additional resources. So we have operations that will be working around human trafficking in particular, because that really has been the driver of a lot of the violence. The human trafficking along International Boulevard is out of control. And to think that now with legislation, we have less authority to actually take enforcement action is truly unfortunate. It's unfortunate for the residents of that community that have to live through that every day. It's unfortunate for young kids, children who are out there being trafficked. That is unbelievable that we can't have the tools in order to go out and try to address this issue that saddens me. As a father of daughters, it is unbelievable to me that we would have even more obstacles to addressing human trafficking in the city of Oakland when you can drive down International Boulevard and see young women, young ladies that are 15 and 13 years old. I've seen it myself. I drove out there myself and saw it, and it was something that saddened me to watch these young children be out there and be trafficked. And we're going to do everything we can to try to do our enforcement efforts and try to bring some of these people responsible for these crimes to justice. But that is a sad situation that's happening along that corridor. It's unfortunate for the community and also the young people.
So you mentioned Beat 19 is the most violent in the city of Oakland right now. What's the plan to tackle that and to help these residents feel safe, these business owners that
Yeah, it has really been a challenge. So what we did, like we did a couple months ago, we had the same issue around Lakeshore, 1200 block of Lakeshore, facing the same level of violence. And we shifted resources to 1200 Lakeshore in that area, and we've seen an improvement. We've seen less shootings and less violence. We will shift resources again to address violence in Beat 19. But the question is are we displacing this violence, moving it from one place to another because we don't have the resources to actually address both problems at the same time? So we'll be working through that to make sure that whatever we do is really focused around the individuals that are driving these crimes so that we can hopefully apprehend the people that drive this violence. It's just a small percentage of people that are responsible for this crime. There are small crews in the city of Oakland that are robbing people, that are carjacking people, that are driving the violence. The data says that only 1% of our population is actually the ones that drive violent crime. That's who we're going to be focused on, but we need to be very targeted and then focused around the individuals that are driving crime on Beat 19.
Any idea on those suspects, who they might be, since you're saying that it's 1%, you have an idea of who people might be?
Yeah, we do have an idea. I won't share them with you, but we do have an idea of crews that we are investigating, people that we are looking into their connection to some of the crime that we've seen across the city. I think that really is our job, is to try to investigate and figure out who is responsible for this crime and try to apprehend those individuals.
We have time for 2 additional questions. Sorry, Jacob.
Just a quick, real quick. You don't know exactly. You don't have identified suspects for this.
No, we don't have any suspects identified for this individual crime here.
So Chief, double check, was this between Chinese and do you think it's a hate crime case?
At this time, there is no evidence to support that it is a hate crime case. This appears to be a robbery. This appears to be a isolated event that didn't, race was not a factor in this case. This appears to be obviously someone that was targeted, someone that they thought that they could get some belongings from.
So was this between Chinese or Asian?
Yes, Mr. Fong. I won't go into his particular nationality because I just want to confirm that with his family, but we know that he was Asian.
Can you speak, how to spell his name?
We'll give you all the
We'll follow up.
Yeah, we'll give you the spelling of it.
Thank you.
One last question.
What's your advice to residents who might be faced with somebody trying to steal their vehicle or trying to steal anything from them in a situation like this?
Well, I always say the safest thing is to allow them to take the property. That we can replace property, we can't replace lives. Allow us to meet with them and report that crime so that we can investigate that crime. Allow us to be able to follow up on whatever it is that they might know. Be a good witness. Be someone that reports that crime to law enforcement. Don't put your life at risk for money or for any kind of valuables, whether a cell phone or a computer. It's not worth it. That can be replaced. What we don't want to see is people lose their lives as a result of this.
Is it accurate to say that 1 in 100 people in Oakland might attack you?
No, I don't believe that. I don't believe that is consistent. 1% of 447,000 people. This city is made up of nearly 450,000 people. When we say 1%, we're talking about less than 4,000 people citywide.
Okay.
Can I answer
Yes.
that question as well? Good afternoon. I'm Councilmember Nikki Fortunato Bass. I represent District 2, which includes this district, Beat 19X, which extends from the Lake cul-de-sac, which has experienced a lot of violence, all the way to San Antonio, where there is the human trafficking that you heard the chief speak of. I want to also add to what the chief shared that in addition to the work that OPD does to respond to solve violent crimes and get to the root of what is driving crime, we also have an opportunity and a commitment as a community, as a council, to ensure that we are doing everything possible to keep Oaklanders safe. So the additional investments that we have made are investments in violence prevention, having community members in these violent neighborhoods that come from the community that can prevent retaliation, for example, having gender-based outreach specialists in the community. We are also working to stand up a program in the fire department for emergency crisis response. Over time, I am hoping that that will allow some of those nonviolent, non-criminal calls that go to 911 to be diverted to the fire department so our police officers can focus their time and attention where there is the higher levels of violence. And finally, I just want to say, because this particular victim appears to have been part of our Asian Pacific Islander American community, that as the council member representing this district, we hear you, we are working with you, we will continue to partner with you, because whether there is violence against an AAPI community member or any single member of our community, we have to work together. We have to build those relationships of trust, and we have to build those strategies that will look at multiple ways to get to the roots of violence, and also make sure that we are solving these crimes and supporting everyone in our city, whether it's a sworn officer or a violence interrupter. We have to make sure that we are all working together for the sake of keeping Oakland safe. Thank you, Chief, and thank you to all of you for being here.
Again, thank you for joining us. If you have any questions that may not have been answered or need any statistical information, please feel free to contact either myself or Manager Paul Chambers, and we'll be sure to follow up and get you that information. Thank you.
This Belly.
Yeah, this